All right, it is 6:33. We are going to get rolling. This is the moment all y'all have been waiting for. The high school application process meeting one. I will make this presentation available for all of the parents. It's actually already posted to students' Google Classrooms. So if you don't want to take notes, you don't have to copy the slides, rather. Everything is going to be sent to you. Come on in, Damien. Come on in, yo. Everything is going to be sent to you, shared with you. So please don't worry about taking notes. I would ask that everyone, if you have questions, if you have questions about the process, about what you're seeing on the slides, if you could please put them in the chat, so that Miss Foster can let me know. And that will make this whole thing run a little bit smoother. It's a lot of information. So please just, yeah, she just started heading over to her room.
But it might be good that you sit in for the high school application process. If you have a seventh grader, you have a seventh grader, then this information is really good for, because they're looking at seventh grade for high schools.
Okay.
So I think that you sit in on this.
Just gotta stay here.
Yeah. And then I'll send this page to you to tell you.
All right, y'all. So at this point, let's get started. Again, I'm Mr. Hudak, for those of you that don't know me. For the 8th graders, but we had your students last year as well, unless they are new to the school. I teach 7th and 8th grade ELA, and I work very closely with the counselor to get through these high school applications. So I'm just going to have our new counselor, Miss Rice, introduce herself to everybody in the room.
Hey everybody, I'm Miss Rice. I'm the new counselor at Gompers. Just a little info about me. I was a counselor and teacher at JZU for the last 7 years. So this is my first year at Gompers. And I'm really excited to get this started, the high school application process. Today we're gonna be going over just some basic information. And then once we get more information, we'll have another workshop and then another workshop after that. So we'll make sure we get you what you need for your child to get everything they need for this process.
Yeah. So, and before we even get into anything, it's going to feel like a lot. And quite frankly, it is a lot. Don't get anxious. Don't get overwhelmed. Communicate with us. We're going to get you through it. And we break it into steps, right? So we're not going to have you do everything all at once 2 days before it's due, right? We're going to make sure that we stay ahead of everything. And the other thing I want to mention is there's going to be somewhat of a new process for applying this year. We'll get into that in a little bit. So what we're presenting tonight is the information that we have and that we've used in the past. So it might not be exactly what we're presenting, but it should be something similar or close, okay? So let's get started. Give me a second. All right. So just one of my favorites, we actually read Robert Frost's poem, but this is really where the path splits off, right? Your student's been out in elementary school, they've been in middle school, and now they have a couple different paths that they're going to be able to take, right? And it's your job to help guide them in the right direction so that they make a good choice for themselves. And we really want to make sure that the high schools that we apply to have to do with what your student is interested in. We want to make sure your student is interested, they're passionate about the schools that they're applying to. If they don't know what they want to do yet, that's okay too. Maybe they want to know that maybe they know that they want to go to college. Maybe know that they don't want to go to college, they want to go to a trade school and get a specialized skill, whatever it might be. But this is really hello. Speaking of a high school student, former alumni, here she is. All right, so
It's a lot of reflecting, reflecting on your wants and needs, who you are, and finding the right fit for yourself.
So our job tonight, our goals for Miss Rice and I, our job is to make you aware, to increase your awareness of how the process works, and to make you feel a little bit confident, a little bit more confident, not so overwhelmed when you walk out of the door tonight, so that you know what to expect moving forward over the next couple of weeks and months. Okay. We also want to make sure that you can advocate for your student. Okay. We want you to be able to use your voice and advocate for your student to get them into a spot that's going to be really beneficial for their short-term and their long-term goals, whatever those might be. And that's tough to read, but
The objectives are that we're gonna identify the three types of high schools that you can choose from, okay? We're gonna go into those in a couple minutes. And then also to determine the right fit, right? That it goes with your preferences. Maybe if you like sports and this place has a good sports program, or maybe that you really like science and this place has a real good science program, right? Make sure it fits your interests and needs. And also the admission expectations, right? So the timeline, what your role is as a parent, where you can find this information and all that.
Okay. And then our agenda, again today, we're going to talk about the types of high schools in the school district of Philadelphia. Ms. Rice so graciously let me know that they did change some of the terminology. So we're going to use both the old and new terminology, because I know a lot of you have older children or might be familiar with this process from the past. So we'll use both. What are the admissions expectations of the special admission high schools? What's Laguerre, finding a fit, the timeline. So all of these things, and then the resources that are already available to you now, so that you can get a head start on this process and start looking with your student. All right.
Okay, the three types of high schools. So there's three types. There's a new terminology update. So you've probably heard of neighborhood schools. They're actually now, this year, they're called catchment schools. Okay, that catchment's like the location, right? And then citywide schools, the name is the same, okay? And the special admission schools that you hear a lot about, the new name is criteria-based schools. That's what the terminology you're gonna hear from the district and on like Great Philly School. You're gonna hear them say catchment schools, which is previously known as neighborhood, citywide, and criteria-based, which was formerly known as special admissions.
Again, you are guaranteed a spot in your neighborhood district or your neighborhood district high school. There are also citywide and special admission options. This is the really important part. You are only allowed to apply to 5 schools in total, okay? Now, the schools we're talking about, this does not include charter schools. It does not include private schools, okay? Those are completely separate from what we're talking about. We don't have anything to do with that. It's a separate application. If you're interested in a charter or a private school, you would go to that school's website. There's an application you would fill out. We can, get you the information that you need for the school, whether it's grades, whatever it might be, but we have nothing to do with that application. We're talking strictly Philadelphia School District schools tonight, okay? So 5 schools, and one of the things I want to say is, before we start getting into the rest of the slides, you need to be really honest about your students' data, okay? I know we all love our kids, we love our students, you love them, we love them, but we need to be really honest with the data from 7th, 6th, and even so far back as 5th grade, but 7th and 6th grade being the 2 key years. And the reason I say that is because the last thing that we want, okay, is for your student to not have any choices at all, right? They don't have a choice. We want them to have at least 1 or 2 schools that they can say, okay, maybe I want to go here, or maybe I can go here. We don't want the only option to be the neighborhood school, all right? That's not to say that all of neighborhood schools are bad, that you can't be successful at neighborhood schools. That's totally not true, but we want your students to have options, all right? So we're going to get into the specific admission criteria moving forward. Every school is a little bit different. It's not a one size fits all thing. So once you do some more research and look into each individual school that you might be interested in, you'll be able to get a better feel. But just a very quick example, like if your student is a B and C student, don't apply to Central, right? Like, don't apply to Central because they're not going to get in. 5,000 kids apply to Central every year, and they only take straight A's, highest, academics. So you're wasting one of your 5 picks trying to get into a school that we all already know that the student's probably not going to get into, right? In 4 years of doing this, we've had 1 student get into Central. Okay? We have students all over the city. Kalea just walked in. She at Paul Robeson High School, special admission school, right? West Philly. Wasn't always special admission, is now. So there's so many different options that will work for your student, but we have to be honest when it comes to certain programs, okay? And I'll leave it at that. If there's any additional questions moving forward, we can kind of dive into them. But I always like to give that kind of quick talk before we get into anything else. All right.
So neighborhood schools, which is now catchment, right?
Yeah.
So they automatically, it's open to students living in the school's catchment area, which is location, like the school zone.
What's that? Parents, would it be helpful if I turned off that?
Yeah, that would be good.
I don't know if it helps.
That's better for me too.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it was
Yeah,
on.
thank you so much.
We've been here since 7, y'all. All right.
Yeah, so the catchment area is just the like the neighborhood zone. We know that, right? Like, so, and many like host career and technical education programs. There's no need to apply again because you can get right into them. And it's really important to visit with your neighborhood school. And you have to also give them proof of your address to enroll. And it's really, if that's something you want to do, make sure it's something like you really think to yourself, like, is there, like, if you're saying to yourself, I want to go to district school, a neighborhood school, right? Give yourself, though, an option of a citywide or a special admission just in case, too. Like, it gives yourself some options, right? Like, make sure you're really thinking about your interests, too. Like, hey, if you want to go to neighborhood school, here's some options, right? Like Abraham, like Benjamin Franklin, Frankfurt, Furnace. We got, these are just like some examples. You can do wonderful things, like Mr. Hodak said, in a neighborhood school, but maybe that might not be the best fit for you. We just want to make sure we're getting you the best fit for you to be the most successful, right? You can gain the most out of high school. So you really have to think about what your needs are when you're thinking about that.
So for most of you, if you live in Winfield or Overbrook, neighborhood high school is going to be Overbrook High School, right? Would be the neighborhood school. You do not need to apply to Overbrook High School. You live here, your student automatically gets in, right? So that is automatically a choice. So let's move on from that. So for example, Overbrook has, I don't know how many people know this, but it has a state-of-the-art recording studio inside. So a lot of students that are interested in like music and video production actually choose Overbrook as one of their choices who don't live in this neighborhood, right? A lot of people don't know that, but it is, like you said, a specialized program. There's other, I'm gonna go to Ms. Foster in a second, but there's other neighborhood high schools that do have some specialized CTE programs, right? Career and technical education. So it really just depends on what your student is interested in. So that's a great point, right? Like again, it really just depends. Ms. Foster?
Great, so there are neighborhood schools that special ed. I went to Northeast High School, but I was a part of the magnet program. So although I lived in Philadelphia, it was a special event for me to be a part of the aerospace program, but it was a neighborhood school for everybody else in the Northeast area. So if you look at the list, there will be a blog or will be a website that you can look and see what programs do each school have. And so once you look at the programs, if your kid is into space and NASA, Northeast, that is a neighborhood school, that program would be good because that's what we actually have an aircraft space in the school that simulates you going into space. So think about what your child is interested in, and neighborhood schools can have the program for your child. You have to get specially admitted to that program. You have to apply to the program and to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's so important to really find out what your needs are, like what you like, and then research, right? We're gonna go into how you can find out about different schools in a little bit. Citywide admission schools, sometimes they look for like attendance and GPA requirements. This is where Mr. Hudak says that's so important for the data, right? Like the 7th grade data, that 6th grade data, because like citywide admissions, they do look at attendance. And that's why attendance is so important, right? They look at that data. And also generally it's easier to get in citywide admission schools rather than special admission schools. A lot of times there's an interview. So Mr. Hudak and I, Ms. Foster, the 7th grade teachers, and the other teachers, we might go over interview skills, right? So then you're better prepared for if you're going for an interview. And they might have to apply, do a basic application and all that. And then you're put in a lottery, okay? We'll get into how you can view the lottery and all that when we get into the portal part of the presentation.
So citywide schools, couple things to add. Every single citywide school has an interview, okay? If you apply to a citywide school, it has an interview. If you don't go, you're out, okay? That's it. There's no rescheduling. There's no something came up, I had whatever. If you don't go to your interview, you're automatically out. You will not get into the school, okay? Another thing I want to mention about citywide, once you get through your interview, you meet somewhat of the attendance and academic requirements. Now you go into lottery. So if it's a big lottery, it's obviously going to be less likely that your student gets in. The more students that go to the interviews have the requirements, the more students that go into the lottery. Some years, like High School of the Future is one a lot of our students go to because it's close, okay? Some years, we've had as many as 12 students from Gompers go to Future. Other years, we've had 3 or 4 because it was a big group of kids that made it through the first couple stages. So it really just depends from, year to year. But what I will say about citywide schools, some of them are amazing, okay? When I say amazing, like when I have kids of my own, like some of these citywide schools, I would even pick, maybe before some of the special admission schools. Constitution being one. If your student is interested in law, is interested in, criminal justice and social justice and all of these different things, critical thinking, philosophy, guess what? That is the best school in the city for that specific area. They have a courtroom in the high school where they do mock trials and have classes in, and their partner is literally the Constitution Center, right? So we've had a lot of kids. I don't want to hype Miss Foster up in the back too much, but we've had a lot of kids that really fell in love with social studies the past couple of years and decided, yeah, I need to go to Constitution. I think we had 4 last year and 7 the year before. So really good school, right? Paul Robeson, depending on the year, sometimes it's special admission, sometimes it's citywide, but their principal just won national principal of the year, right? Principal Gordon, we had him on a call with our students last year. We have Mr. DeLuca has a really good relationship. Gompers has a good relationship, right? And Paul Robeson is an amazing school in West Philly. So again, after we go over the special admission part, I'll give my next piece of advice. But don't count these ones out, right? This is why it's so important to do your research and know your child, because a lot of these citywide schools are very, very good, right?
And like Mr. Hudak said, it's really important to meet those dates. So if you have an interview, you need to make sure you attend it then and to know when the open houses are to get more information. And don't worry, we'll tell you where to look to find that information in a little bit.
It's cold now.
Oh, right. So, sorry about that pause. Sorry about that pause, but special admission now is called criteria based, okay? Remember this, you'll hear now it says criteria based, but that's the special admission schools, right? So they really behavior, right? Attendance, again, your grades. This is things that they are going to be looking at. So we need to make sure like they're gonna be looking at your 7th grade. But this year, I will tell you this year they're not looking at the PSSA score, so that's something that's changed this year. So if you're wondering, they're not going to be looking at the
They
PSSA.
are looking at STAR scores.
They're not looking at the PSSAs, okay?
They're looking at STAR for the students that say, well, I didn't really try on that one. I could have done better. Well, we need you to try on these because they look at them.
Yes.
All right? We're not lying about it. They look at this data.
And they're gonna require extra things like essays, right? So that's when we're gonna be working with, obviously, your ELA teacher, Mr. Throck, on working on those skills, right? To make sure you shine through those essays as well. Interviews, again, we're gonna go over those interview skills, how to answer what questions you might be asked. Projects, auditions, right? And we actually have a link in here for some, like, what some requirements for the auditions might be for different schools. And also letters of recommendation. So make sure you know who to ask for a letter of recommendation for, right? Someone who knows who you are. So who knows your student best, right? Okay.
Here's my piece of advice. Now that we talked about citywide and special admission, I can give the biggest piece of advice. Don't pick all special admission. Don't. Unless your student, straight A's, advanced data, perfect attendance, like, you need to give yourself some backup options, okay? Every single year, I'm just gonna be completely transparent and honest to everybody here and everybody at home. Every year, we have a parent say, no, they're gonna get in, they're gonna get in. They do straight special admission, and they don't get in anywhere. It happens every single year, and sometimes it's our best students. It happened to our salutatorian a couple of years ago. She didn't get in anywhere, and then had to do a year at the neighborhood school before she transferred out. So please, I'm begging you, have some backups. Pick a citywide or two, at least 2, because remember, citywide's lottery. So if the lottery doesn't go in your favor for one of them, you need to have backup options. These schools are extremely competitive, right? Kappa, everybody knows Kappa, creative and performing arts, right? Everybody, a lot of people who are into the arts want to go to Kappa. Well, guess what? You don't even get an audition for Kappa if you don't have good attendance and grades. It's a wrap. You could be the best singer, dancer, artist in the world. If you don't have good attendance and good grades, it doesn't matter. You're not even going to get past the first round to be able to showcase your talent. So again, this is where we just need to be honest with ourselves about this process. We need to be honest with ourselves, right? And I'll just say again, we have students all over the city. Our first 8th grade graduating class is in high school, or is a senior in high school this year. So our first 8th grade class seniors, they'll be graduating this year. We have kids in special admissions all over the city, in citywides all over the city, and some kids at some neighborhood programs as well, right? So it works for, it aligns with your interests. It will work for you, okay? But we just want to make sure, again, that we have choices.
Maybe pause for some questions here.
Yeah.
Can we get a one-on-one with teachers and really go over what schools that we think would be best for our child, since you know them better?
So basically what we'll do is we'll have an assignment in a couple of weeks where students will give us a short list of schools they're interested in. It's a Google Classroom assignment. They'll post it and give us 5 to 10 schools that we're interested in. We'll take a look at that and match it up with their data and kind of have a conversation with them. We will not submit applications without making contact with you. So we will call, we will confirm with you your school choices before we submit with anything. And we will, we'll be transparent with students too and say, I don't think these are the best choices. I really need to call home and talk to your parent so that we have some backups or we have whatever, right? So you will all be involved as a part of the process.
Yeah, this is gonna be a team effort. Students, parents, counselor, teachers, we're all gonna need to work together to make sure we're finding that best fit.
I have a question.
Yes,
Can parents add to the list?
we'll talk, let me get to that. I'm gonna talk about how actually for the portal and all that, I'll get to that. This is basically just comparing all 3. We already went over each one, and just so we can get to questions and like more things, I think we can skip over this, you can review it. This was just an example of what like maybe special admit and like citywide school info from, who's here. I don't know if you can bring that up.
Yeah, I can pull it up really
Just
quick.
just like an example.
Yep, give me 1 second. So basically what this is, and any citywide or special admission high school is gonna have extra criteria, right? Like the neighborhood school you just apply to, right? But depending on, did it come up?
Not yet.
Okay, there it is. Depending on, oh, I remember that. It's not here for, yeah, it's on,
What do you want? Special speech, you'll be-
it's on, just so the people who are on the computer know, it's online. The people online at home can see it, but everybody here can't. Okay, so,
For example,
yeah.
you can see that like schools with auditions, essays, and interviews, like Arts Academy at Ben Rush, like see how like all applicants must submit an audition. So you'll just see here as an example, like essays for these different schools, interviews, Masterman, Parkway, you know, you just see that the different schools require different things. So that's why it's so important to go to Great Philly School, to look on what each school that your child wants to apply to, see what you need to do first.
Yeah.
Can we also make a mention of SLA for fiscal appearance at home and down?
Oh, about the interviews?
Thank you.
They said to mention, because SLA Beaver is right around the corner, the old Beaver school, but now is special ed, so they said.
If you are interested in your student attending SLA Bieber, Science Leadership Academy at Bieber, or Science Leadership Academy, but specifically SLA at Bieber, you must call and schedule an interview. We are not allowed to do it. It must be you. And if you know that's going to be one of your school choices, you could probably do it now or within the next couple weeks. Okay? You must call. And again, they are really strict with interviews. Okay? That if you miss the date, so sorry.
They're so strict that I heard they don't put the date online. You were like looking for the date online, have to call SLA, you have to schedule it through their office, and there's no changing dates. It's a lot of people trying to get into the old Beaver. So.
And one of the reasons that is, we had a conversation with the principal over there last year. They had 4,000 interviews last year. Okay, so think about that, 2 high school staffs doing 4,000 interviews in 4 days. Okay, so that's why they're super strict with it, but you must call. We cannot call for you. We cannot be in any contact with them. They will not communicate with us. It has to be a parent advocacy in that way. And it needs to be done even before you submit your application. If you know that Beaver is going to be one of your choices, I would do it now. Okay?
Yeah, I would do it now too, because the portal isn't even open yet for you to apply to places, so this is a great time for you to just like get out of the game. If
When you
that's what
call
you're
them,
interested.
what do you want to do? Call them?
You could call them. You could also go to their website and email their principal and counselor. Like shoot their email, and their principal is really responsive via email. So is their counselor. Put the principal in there, CC the counselor, and just say, I'm interested in, setting my student up with an interview for 2021, 2022, whatever high school application process. Can you please contact me back with the date that I need to be there for?
I would do it this or next week, if that's something that you are interested in.
Huh?
I'm sorry, one more thing. As soon as I talk about attendance, you talk about grades, but the last thing is distance. How far are you willing?
We're not there yet.
You're not there, but
Nope.
think about distance as well.
Now we're there.
So there we're there. You probably can't see on the map, but think about, for myself, it was best that I left West Philly. Do your child need to leave West Philly and experience a Center City? Do your child need to experience the Northeast or go to camp in South Philly?
Or Saul?
Are you comfortable with staying in West Philly? And if you know the answer is no, my child needs to experience the other parts of the city and see some better stuff, then SLA Beaver that's walking distance and they can get in all types of, not saying anything about it, But I know for myself, I couldn't, and my sister and my brother staying in West Philly was not the best thing. Traveling, experiencing new things was also great. But then also, what's too far? You also know your child don't know they left from their right and can't get on the SEPTA bus. So don't put little Boo-Boo on the SEPTA bus and get lost downtown where his cell phone ain't gonna work underground. So also know how far is too far and how far is far enough that my child will get in trouble after school hanging around in the same
If
neighborhood.
your student can't make it to Gompers by 8:15 in the morning on a regular basis, you probably shouldn't send them to South Philly or to the Northeast, which has earlier start times, and it takes 2 or 3 buses and the sub or whatever it might be to get there.
No.
No.
There is no
It's-
school bus.
It's TransPass. It's public transportation. Public transportation. Unless there is like a documented need for the student, which they would already have busing now, right? But there is not. It's all public transportation. So again, unless you're like we have a parent who drives their student every day to Saul, every day to Saul. We have parents that drive their student every day to Palumbo, every day to Central. If you're willing to do that, that's fine. But if they're going to be using public transportation and it's across the city and they're going to be catching a couple of, they're going to have to be super responsible. Like Ms. Foster said, you know your child better than anyone else. You know if they're going to be able to handle it. You know if they're not going to be able to handle it. All right.
That's one thing to consider when you're doing your research, right? Before you pick your 5 schools.
All right. We have about 15, 20 minutes before we need to take questions. So let's just, we're going to have to, I'm talking too much. I always do.
I just want to let you know, especially for this next part coming up, I just want you to be aware, this is the first workshop, right? So there's going to be more workshops to answer more questions, because right now, me and Mr. Hoodup are only going over what we have from the district so far. I guess we got to go over LaGuerre first. I thought we were going over the process, but just so you know, we're just giving you what we have so far. We're going to be getting more information, and whenever we get more information, we will provide it to you via Google Classroom.
I'm gonna text y'all. I'm gonna text all of you.
Okay? All right. So what is LaGuerre? This is for students who have IEPs, 504 plans, or English language learner. It's an advocacy process that allows students to have equal opportunity to apply and attend a special admission high school. This advocacy process is only applicable to 8th graders who are heading to 9th grade. LaGuerre does not guarantee that your child will get into a special admission school. This is just giving you equal opportunity. Students must still meet or come close to the admission criteria, okay? And also, the school must be able to provide reasonable accommodations for the school to be, the student to be successful. Again, we want to make sure it's the best fit, right? We want to make sure if your child does have an IP, if he does have a 504 plan, they have what your child needs at the school so they can be successful.
So we're going to move through this slide quickly because this is something we're going to talk about with your student in class, but this is conversations you can have at home as well. You know, what's your student's strongest subject? What's your student's weakest subject? If your student doesn't like science and they're not good at it, you probably shouldn't send them to Science Leadership Academy, right? That probably ain't going to be a good fit. Even though you might want them to be a doctor, if they're not good at science, they don't like it, they ain't going to make it as a doctor, okay? What are 3 things your student wants in a high school, right? We want to look at the whole package. We want to look at things like sports and extracurriculars. We want to look at things like college admissions rates. We want to look at the academic programs that they have, all of these different things. What are the 3 most important things to your student that they might want in their high school? And then does your student have any special talents or interests? Okay. So here's the process. What Ms. Rice was saying is going to be, you know, it might not be exactly what we have up here.
New.
Um,
There's a new process.
This is the first year for this new process. They still haven't given us information. So as soon as we get it, I promise we're going to send it out.
Let's go to the.
Yeah, I'm just going to skip.
Okay, so here's what's new this year, okay? So where you're gonna do the selection process, it's gonna be in what's called Smart Choice. This is gonna be a new digital tool used by students and parents and guardians to create and submit applications. And what's cool about the Smart Choice, not only can you like edit your applications and submit it, but you can also view your lottery results and accept placement off. Hello, I did hear. Accept placement offers. Okay, so you'll be able to access it through the parent and family portal. Okay, so if you go to, that's why I said on Class Dojo, I put on how to do the parent and family portal. If you haven't already created one, make sure you are create your login for that. If there's another way, Mr. Hudak also has handouts if you need it. That's really important for you to be able to do this, okay? Also, you can do it through your student portal or the Office of Student Enrollment and Placement website. I wouldn't really worry about right now because guess what? It's not even available for you to use at the moment, okay? So the selection process has not opened up yet. It's to be determined right now. So you'll even see if you go onto the Great Philly Schools website, it'll even say there's no date exactly for September yet, okay? Also, there's guidance for accessing and using Smart Choice. So the district will give us steppers and tutorials to send to parents, okay? So you can take a breath on that. You don't need to know exactly how to use it yet. We'll send you steppers, we'll send tutorials on how to use the app. You have any questions on that? There's not really much to really be said except we'll give you more information on Smart Choice once we receive it from the district, which will give us steppers and tutorials on how to use it, okay? And that might be what we talked about in our second workshop more. Oh, so we were talking about the lottery earlier, correct? So on Smart Choice, during the application phase, which we're going to talk about the timeline in a minute, you'll be able to see when you apply to those citywide schools, you're going to be able to see when you submit it, if it's in processing, if it's submitted and eligible, if it's ineligible, and if you're eligible, it's going to say you're offered placement or waitlisted, okay? So on this app that we're going to get, you're going to be able to see everything there. So that's the cool thing about the new tool is you don't only need one. You just need the Smart Choice to be able to do everything.
So our timeline, this timeline is going to look a little bit different than it has the past. Oops. Now it looks really different. It ain't even up there. This timeline is going to look a little bit different than it normally does. Again, because we're still waiting for the new app. I know it's super small, but the applications normally open at the end of September. It might be October at this point because we're almost at the end of September already. So it might be early October. We just don't know. Students will make their 5 school selections in Smart Choice. Okay. The application normally closes sometime normally it's the beginning of November, but now it's probably going to be towards the end. Probably, I would imagine, right before your report card conferences and right before Thanksgiving break. Probably in that range, they'll be due. Then normally your student will have their auditions, their interviews in December, and maybe January of this year. Again, we don't know. And then in January, the schools will review the data, and by February.
Please, for an interruption. Last call for pizza. Last call for pizza. So I think we have approximately 20 seconds. About 20 minutes.
Anybody online, if you need cold pizza, Mr. Parker has some in the auditorium. And then normally the school will let you know by February what schools your student got into, what schools they didn't. And the charter application is a little bit different. I do recommend that families outside of the school district go through and submit, an application to a couple charter schools just in case they wouldn't get into these schools. The charter applications are open through January, I believe. They normally close at the end of January. So make sure you put, a couple charters in just to be safe. Again, we just want you to have as many options as possible. Okay.
The leg of this work's going to be the next couple months, okay? The next October and November of doing the biggest part will be that next 2 months.
What can you do? So we are going to do a lot of this work in school, in particular in Mr. Hudak's ELA class. Find and start looking at schools now. I'm going to show you where I have the resources posted. They're on your students' Google Classroom. They've been since the beginning of the year. I already showed them to them. But you guys can start using these resources now to figure out where you might want them to go. And I would strongly, recommend that, doing it now so that it's not a couple weeks before and all of a sudden we're in a rush. Don't make Mr. Hudak cry. This year it will be Mr. Hudak and Miss Rice. We don't need any mental breakdowns this year. All right. Great Philly Schools and the high school directory. This is the old directory, but a lot of the information is still completely accurate. It's last year's. So I would just use this until the new one comes out, along with Great Philly Schools. And what I want to show you guys really quickly is just on your students' Google Classroom. Let me just get there, and I'm going to share this tab.
And Mr. Hawk, can you show that video for me?
Yes, I can. Yep. So under their classwork tab, anything that has to do with the high school application process is going to be down in this section where it says your choice high school application process, right? I already have everything posted for them. So they can scroll down and see this. I already posted the Find Your Fit website. So as soon as the school district posts their information of what the dates are going to be, the link is on here. I already posted the high school directory, which has every single high school in the city and information about them. So you can go on here and look at this through this book together. I already have posted Great Philly Schools and a couple different resources, a video, the website, a presentation that we use. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can start looking through with your student now to figure this stuff out. All right?
Great Philly School is going to be like that main one you're going to be using to like look up different information. They give detailed information about the schools.
Yeah.
And they have actually a little video if we want to put it on. It's 3 minutes. Is that okay?
Sure. So, and I'll say too, the high school directory is a lot more detailed. Great Philly School is going to give like a really general overview of each school and kind of give you some like category rankings, some general category rankings. The like deep information about each school is going to be in the directory. Okay, that's where you're going to get really detailed information. So I would maybe use Great Philly Schools to narrow it down. And then once you've narrowed it down to like maybe 10 or 12 schools, I would look them up in the directory to get the specific information. That's how I would go about it.
Great idea.
Okay. So we have a video. Let's put this on, and then we'll take questions. We're almost at the end.
Choosing what high school to go to is one of the most important decisions you'll make as a middle schooler.
But with over 100 different options for high schools in Philly, the process can seem a bit overwhelming.
But it's okay because Great Philly Schools has created an easy step-by-step guide to help you and your family find the best high school for your interests and needs. So let's tackle this decision by using Great Philly Schools' 6 simple steps.
Did you know that most schools require that you apply nearly a year before the school year begins? Applying early to private schools can also help improve your chances of receiving financial aid.
Make sure you research the deadlines and give yourself plenty of time to prepare. It's a good idea to start thinking about which high school you want to go to in the 6th or 7th grade.
With so many schools to choose from, you should take some time to think about your academic and non-academic needs. What skills do you want to learn? What sports do you want to play? Do you have any other talents or interests?
I was really interested in learning a technical skill, so hands-on programs were important to me.
I was looking for schools with a good STEM program because science is my favorite subject.
After understanding your needs and wants for the school, the next step is deciding what qualities are more important to you.
Are you able to travel farther away, or do you need a school close to home? Are arts and music important to you? Make a list and rank them in order of importance.
I knew I wanted to play sports after school and join clubs and activities.
At this point, you're finally ready to start looking for schools. You can use Great Philly Schools K-12 guide or visit greatphillyschools.org to find and compare hundreds of schools. You can find information about courses, admission requirements, and extracurricular programs and more.
Start making a list of schools that stand out to you, and don't hesitate to ask people like parents, guidance counselors, and mentors for support.
Now that you listed all your needs and narrowed down your top school choices, it's time to get to know the schools. Try to reach out to students and teachers to better understand what it's like to go to a school. You can ask the principal, admission staff, and school counselors about things like academic expectations, class sizes, and career paths.
Talking to teachers and current students helped me make the most informed decision. I got to observe classes and speak with teachers. They were very welcoming but also had high expectations.
If you can't physically visit, you can call or email the schools you're considering. Many schools host virtual events, open houses, and info sessions, so you can get all the information you need from home. You can find these virtual events and make appointments to meet with schools at phillyhighschoolfair.com. Be sure to prepare a few questions to get the most out of your visit.
After visiting your top schools and making lots of notes, you'll be ready to start the application process. Depending on what school you want to go to, the application process can vary. For high school, you need to apply during the fall of 8th grade. Visit greatphillyschools.org to figure out your application requirements and deadlines all in one location.
Okay, now you're prepared to go out there and find the perfect high school.
I just wanted to take a breath. I know that was just a lot of information, right? It's a lot to take, right? It's a lot. And I think right now, the only thing really to worry about is just like doing some research and just kind of getting an idea of what you like.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to worry about smart choice yet. It's not even about. Just worry about kind of doing, like, playing around, seeing what schools are out there that you might like. That's like the first step right now, okay?
This presentation is on your students' Google Classroom. They have it. I'm gonna post a video of this whole presentation that we just did to YouTube, so that if you wanna watch it back, take notes, pause in certain spots, whatever, that's great. Here's the last thing that I need to say to everybody. This is important. Just because, you know, we get this every year too. Well, my brother and cousin and whoever are all alumni at such and such school. Well, that might have been 5, 10, 15 years ago. Schools change, right? Overbrook was probably the second to third hardest school in the city to get into only about 15 years ago. So schools change every, 3 to 5 years, definitely 7 to 10 years, they change. A common one, and I'm not saying it's a bad school at all. Don't quote me on that. I'm not saying it. But High School of the Future, when it was first built, because it was a Bill Gates school, it was brand new, state of the art, got a lot of hype, right? It's not the top special admission school in the city anymore. It's still a citywide. It's kind of competitive to get into, but depending on what your student wants to go to, it might not be the best school for them. So what I'm basically saying is, don't go by what so-and-so said. Don't go by, the reputation from years ago. Because again, Miss Kalea up here at Paul Robeson, which is now one of the most difficult schools in the city to get into, even though it's citywide, even though it's in West Philly, they have the National Principal of the Year, and their data is skyrocketing. So like it depends. Do your own research. Do your own research. Don't go by old reputations. That's a wrap to everybody online. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Come here. You want some yard?
It's not my job.
Okay, she did a paragraph that she had to do for assignments here. I unsubmitted it because it was not grammatically correct. And I told her she could, she got all upset, like, you already accepted it, you already looked at it. I need you to give her more constructive feedback on her paragraph. Because it's not very good to me. And don't look.
I mean, so normally what happens is I'm giving feedback to 20 students in class at once. So I'm not going to be able to give I'm able to read through and give feedback. But where I give my feedback is normally in the class comments after I go back and read it and grade it. So what I'm saying is when I do that, she can go back, edit it, and then resubmit it and then point it out. Well, they do read them in class, but
She doesn't follow through with it. And then she get all upset at me because I'm trying to mess up her work. Because I'll go in and unsubmit it if you don't, and tell her to do it over. And she doesn't normally do it. Do you think she can make it into SLA?
SLA Beaver or SLA, possibly. It depends on how competitive this year is. It depends on how. It depends on how much effort we put in this exam here. If we're giving our maximum effort on STAR, or if we're just clicking through, because that's be the difference. The last one that she actually found, she scored advanced. The first 3 she scored basic, and 1 was below basic. So it's they going to see consistency too, because if they look at the data and they see. But it looks, right? If you go from below basic to advanced, the school's like, what? Like, how did that happen? Right? So it looks like it's indicative of work ethic and effort too.
Yeah, but I think she needs help with her paragraph structure and the way she writes and stuff like that. I got it with her.
We're working on it. Charters?
To be out of the neighborhood.
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just don't know a lot. About shoulders?
Yeah, I want to go STEM.
SLA Beaver, you have, thank you.
I want to do something in Center City. Just
Uh,
something too close.
And engineering and sciences.
Florida.
Well, yeah, George Washington Carver, engineering
Something
and
outside
sciences.
Florida. Where's that, downtown?
It's not downtown, I
Yeah, I don't
believe
want her
it's,
in Northeast.
yeah, I'm not,
And that's dangerous.
off the top of my head, there's just so many, there's a list for science specific
Oh,
schools.
it is?
Yeah, there's a list of all that stuff.
You know,
In the book. In the book that's posted on our classroom, you can start looking through it.
so
It lists them by, not on this one.
wait, no, what's
No, you scored basic on the first one for this year. Mhm. That was the last one last year. So, that's what I mean, math. This doesn't. This is not. Yeah, you can. Yes.
So yeah, you say try to find the right fit, you know, like this.
Yeah.
Good fit.
Well, yeah, but you know, it's a lot. It's over. That's why we like to do it now. Not, you know, a week or two before October or before November. So you have plenty of time to get it done. Just use that book that's posted on his classroom. Work together to put a list together. We'll go from there. We should be in good shape.
And what the Eagles gonna do this week?
I don't know, but all I know is I can't hear Mr. Parker say now. All we know is it's a Cowboys win, so.
Hey, Mr. Leah.
How you doing? You
So,
good?
you know who I am?
I'm not sure, to be honest. The masks throw everything off.
Sharif mom.
Okay.
So he coming back on Monday.
I'm glad he's gonna be back.
I like
You
to
got it.
let him come back. But he wanna come back.
That's a good thing. You know what the funny thing is?
Give me in the dog.
Everybody-
You know he got a small dog.
Everybody be complaining when they're here, but as soon as something like that happens and they're out a couple days, they're all like, "Oh, I just want to go back. I want to be back in school." How you doing? I got you.